me ask you this. In your head, is there a difference between North Carolina not making the NCAA tournament and saying, hey, I don't want to play in the NIT. This wasn't our goal this year.
Yeah.
Our roster's in flux. We put an effort in to try to get into the real tournament to play for the championship. It didn't work out. We're not playing in the NIT. Is there a difference between that and saying, in Florida State saying our goal was to make the championship, to play for the championship, and now we don't want to play?
No, I don't see one.
I don't see a difference either.
Yeah. No, if they wanted to completely opt out of it to make a point, I would support that. I would understand it, but I'm looking at it more from a
the Orange Bowl would be so mad.
Oh well, man.
The ACC would be so
mad. Well, if I'm Florida State, okay, thank you for bringing that up. The ACC would be mad.
Like when Carolina did it, like Juwan Howard strangely was mad. Like if Florida State did that, which I absolutely think they should do.
Cool.
I would go, we're 13-0. We won all of the games that were scheduled that we were supposed to play.
Yeah.
We are, like you said, we're the New York Times national champions.
We'll make them the OG national champs.
We're the Billingsley computer champions. Whatever you are, we'll find it and say that you are.
Is there a custom patch you can put on that OG hoodie that says, OG national champs?
Just 12-0, 13-0.
13-0. Boom.
Boom. Send it to him. Send it to Norvell. Who was the Drew Weatherford? Was that the quarterback?
Yeah, he's on the board of trustees now, which we'll get to that in a second. So you said the ACC would be mad, and
they would be furious.
If I'm Florida State, I would go back to the ACC and said, "What did you do for us?
Yeah, this is your fault.
This is honestly, is your fault.
Well, it's Georgia's fault. Really.
No.
Because if Georgia beats Alabama, then they're in.
I have been screaming this since December 3rd. That the ACC has a gigantic political messaging problem. And
I can't argue with that.
There's a commissioner in place that does not want to play the game. You want to talk about being pissed. If I'm Florida State and the ACC was mad at me for opting out, I would turn around and say, you're mad about us. Why are you not mad at our television partner who had an entire schedule release for the SEC where we took strays all night? Think about that. You didn't watch this thing, but I saw clips and it was just like every so often they just find ways to stick it to the ACC. And I know where that comes from because I know the behind the scenes nature of the jealousy and dynamics and the political dynamics that take place at ESPN between the ACC, the network, and the SEC. So that stuff comes from a higher spot to be like, stick it to them. Absolutely stick it to them because what are they going to do? They're not going to fight back. So if I'm the ACC, if I'm Florida State, I go, what are you guys doing? Because you ain't helping us out.
Now, the only thing I would say is if they were going to opt out, they should have done it already.
Yeah.
So that Louisville would have had the opportunity to play in the Orange Bowl where they would have appreciated the chance to play in the Orange Bowl. But what do I know anymore about who wants to play bowl games and who doesn't? I can't figure it out. Man.
I just, if they're going to play, I hope they win and then they go undefeated and they just start talking about how we're national champs. I would absolutely love that. I mean, it wouldn't stop the Florida State Board of Trustees from doing it. I mean, they're still talking about leaving the ACC. That's the other story that came out of Florida State because it is directly tied to what happened with being left out of the college football playoff. Andrea Adelson had a story on ESPN saying that FSU had renewed their in-depth discussions about their long-term future in the ACC. A lot of it has to do with the snub. The situation is expected to come to a head in the near future and be formally discussed soon, sources indicated to ESPN. While there have been renewed discussions, no Board of Trustees meeting has been called. To be clear, Florida State is not leaving the ACC in the near term, but is merely weighing its options. All right. Couple things about this. They're not leaving anytime soon because it gets back to the television contract. And I did find it interesting in going back, listening to the Bubba Cunningham interview that we had yesterday. You had asked him about the additions of Cal, Stanford, and SMU, and the reported nature of why they went and just got the remaining parts they cared about of the Pac-12. Because if teams leave, you need the filler to make sure your contract with ESPN still works. And I thought Bubba's answer was very, very telling.
This was a move made in anticipation of a Florida State or Clemson or a Carolina leaving the league. Mm-hmm. As someone who's involved in these conversations, you're in the room where it happens. Like, do you get the sense that that's imminent?
Well, I think that what we've heard and what we've seen action on is, there's a financial gap between the television contracts between the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC. So to try to close that gap, we've created this success initiative that allows some of the schools that are going to compete at the highest level, particularly in football, to help close the gap. So I think that was a step toward it. And I think that's very helpful in that scenario. But I think all of us are a bit uneasy because none of us thought 12 months ago we wouldn't have a Pac-12. And so when you see that, then you're like, oh my gosh, if it's the old, if it can happen to them, it can happen to anybody. So I understand the concern about it, but I don't anticipate it. And if you look back the last couple of years, all of those transitions have been tied to the expiration of their media rights. And so to me, those are the tipping point dates that we need to keep in mind, that's when things would change, probably not until those times.
So that was Bubba Cunningham on with us, episode 116 of this podcast. You can catch the full interview on YouTube or just go back and listen to that podcast. A lot of good stuff from Bubba Cunningham. But that last part there, Joe, about the television contracts, he's absolutely right.
Yeah, and he's right. Oklahoma, Texas, when you think about it, their deal was coming up. And remember, they were going to leave early. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it was like, maybe not. I don't have that kind of money later out. At USC, UCLA, the Pac-12 deal was up. Hence their move.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a while. Florida State's going to have to sit their ass down and wait a while. I keep saying 2030 at the earliest. 2030 for Florida State leading.
Gives you another 5-year win. I mean, even 5 years is a lot to swallow.
It is. And that's a lot of SMU winning the league. Right?
Could happen next year.